Hello and happy Thursday. Welcome to another Purse Strings Lunch and Learn. My name is Maggie Nielsen. I'm a partner at Purse Strings, and we do these lunch and learns to bring our professionals on, share their knowledge and their expertise to give us some, information, get our wheels turning. But then when you're ready to hire a coach or plan for retirement, get a will, get a trust, get divorced, get married, whatever these transitions are in life, we have top tier financial professionals willing, ready, and able to serve you. We call those our purse strings approved professionals, and Abby Henderson is one of them. So we're so excited to have her on today to talk about spending with visions, values, and joy, as we go into this holiday season. But before we go into all that fun, Abby, could you give us a little intro of who you are and what you do?
Sure. So my name is Abby Henderson. I'm a financial advisor and coach outside of Boston, Massachusetts. I feel like I've been doing this forever. I've been an advisor for 23 years, thereabouts. And probably 6 or 7 years ago, I started incorporating coaching into my financial advisory practice. So I'm not only a certified financial planner, I am also a certified life coach.
Awesome. I love that. That's such a great combo because they really do go hand in hand.
Yeah, I love it. It's the best part of any engagement. It's, getting to do the coaching piece.
Nice. I love that. Well, we're so excited to have you on today to talk about, spending with your visions, value, and joy. If anyone is tuning in and has any questions along the way, just pop them in the chat. If you're watching the live, you can still pop them in the chat and we'll work on getting back to those as well. So let's dive in.
All
Let's
right.
dive in. Yeah, tell us all about how we spend with, vision, value, joy.
Perfect. So what I thought we could do today is I could walk people through how I approach it with clients. And it's sort of a two-step process. Well, it's actually more of a seven-step process, but phase one is sort of looking at where you are now. And then based on what you learned from that, how do you then move forward?
Mm.
So step one is to make a list of all of the categories of your spending. And I don't necessarily need dollar amounts, but I do need some detail. So no one's going to like hearing this, but you're going to have to break down that Amazon charge. I know. It's the part I don't like about it myself. Um, but things like groceries and gifts and clothing and maybe self-care, restaurants, groceries. So like the more detail you can come up with, the better the whole process and the insights that you'll get will be. And then what you do once you have your list, and again, you don't need amounts per se. I really just want the categories. I want you guys to look at each category and rate each category from 1 to 10 on how much you value that category. So, and don't overthink it. We all like to have that judgy voice in the back of our mind that's telling us what's right and what's wrong, and this shouldn't be there, and making up stories about the kind of person that puts self-care on their list. So just get it out there, and then get your scores from 1 to 10. How much value? So, for example, maybe the category is groceries and you really take pride in buying really healthy food for your family, so maybe that's a 10 for you. And it's really sort of a core value of nourishing your family in a certain way. Once you do that, then I want you to look at your whole list and look at the things that you gave a 7 or greater score on. And look at each category and then write down a few sentences about why you value that. So let's say it was home expenses and you gave that an 8. And so maybe you would say, I really value home expenses because I really love having a cozy home where the
Mhm.
whole family gathers. We have great connection, and it really nurtures relationships. So just write down a couple things. And then I want you to do the same process, but instead look at your expenses again. And instead of what you value, let's look at it from a little bit different perspective and look at it from the context of what brings you joy. Same thing, 1 to 10. 10 is this spending this money, and the result of it just makes me so happy and thrilled and joyful. 1 is I really don't like writing this check. Same thing, look at the things that are 7 or greater and throw down a couple sentences on why it is that brings you joy. So, for example, maybe it's you spend money on a vacation, and that is a 10.
Those are nice. Yeah.
Nice. And that is a 10 for you because you love adventure, and every year you try to go to someplace new, and you come home feeling inspired. Whatever it is, just put that down. And then from there, I want you to look at everything you've written and start looking for themes. So I actually have, just to give you guys an example, an exercise I did with one of my clients, and we can take a look at sort of what they came up with. So when I was doing this with them, we were just sort of, I was asking them the question. So, what is it about vacation that really brings you joy? And that's where they did come up with freedom. They came up with other things like fun, adventure. What else is on here? Fitness, community. So just keep like throwing up or circling or however it really makes sense for you. Trying to pull out some themes from all the things that you've written down. Once you come up with your list of some of the things that are repeating often, and that's, on this example, I was using check marks when it was coming up multiple times for multiple expenses. So for example, security in their case came up twice. So I circled it once the first time, and then when it came up again for a different expense, I added a check mark. There's a million ways to do this. So just, do whatever makes sense for you in the moment. But then start looking at where, what's coming up often. And hopefully you can then narrow it down to a list of sort of the things that are reliably going to give you high scores on either the joy meter or the value meter. And then once you have that, you can do 2 things. One is looking forward. So when you're going to spend money or do your budget for next year, and this is year end, so it's the perfect time to probably be revisiting a budget or doing your first one. See how it's matching up with these values and what brings you joy. And I will warn you, there's always going to be things that you have to spend money on that you don't see value in, and you definitely do not bring you joy. So I don't want you to think you will get down to no low scores, but it's amazing what looking at your expenses and your budget, looking at them from a lens of your values and what really truly brings you happiness can do. There's just so much value and power in that intention, because I think so many people can get into a rut where they're kind of spending money without thinking about it.
Right.
And so you can look forward, and then you can also, look at your list of low scores and see if there's anything in there you can cut out. And sometimes there is. Sometimes you're spending money on subscriptions that you're not reading. You don't love doing it. You don't really value it. So that's an easy one to be like, I think I can just cut that out. That's low on the list.
Right. And so I feel like it's a great way. I mean, I'm thinking through this, and you really do have to divide kind of your Amazon bill of like, let's say you get a lot of books that's the part that brings you joy and things like that. But then you buy all these like fast items. I don't know,
paper
that
towels.
yeah, and it's like, well, it's not, I mean, it's you kind of just need them, so you really have to sift through and kind of put them into different buckets than you normally would of just food, transportation,
Yes.
utilities, things like that.
Absolutely. And that's going back to the more detail you come up with, I think the more insights you can get from this process.
Definitely. And so personally, what are some of the things that you love to spend, like you find are your values and joy that you love to spend on?
So I'm a dog mom. I love my
Yeah.
puppies. So and this is actually a good example. I love buying them toys. So, that would be high on my joy list. Their food is not that exciting. So I value it, but it's not going to be high on a joy meter.
Right.
So that's the first one that comes to mind. And I love giving gifts.
Mm,
So that is high on my value and my joy meter.
I love that. I love that. Yeah, I would definitely say, one of mine is like I love to go out to eat just because since I work from home, I love getting out and like
Yep.
doing something or going out with people just because I'm at home all the time. And so it's like, yeah, I could eat at home more, but to me, that's like the whole thing of getting out and just, being part of society. And so, yes, I could cook at home and save some money, but that's kind of where that joy and that's why I value it versus just, going out because I just don't want to cook at home.
Totally. And so what I think I hear you saying, and tell me if this is not correct, but it's really about connection with other people.
Right.
It's about, community. So it's about all those bigger themes. It's not
Exactly.
actually really about the restaurant per se.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. But I do like good food,
Oh, me too.
so
Me too.
yeah. So this does seem like a perfect time to kind of go through these things, looking into the new year. Do you find that there's something consistent that most people then end up like cutting from their spending right away?
So you'd be surprised when someone starts really drilling down and paying attention that there are a lot of things that were just happening automatically, spending wise, that don't really bring that person value. The subscription one I see a lot.
Yeah.
Or I have a um, I don't know, Hulu, and I never watch it.
Hmm.
Well, that's an easy one. And then maybe
Right.
you say, you want to know what? I love restaurants. I'm going to shift that.
Right.
That spending each month would really serve me better another meal out or whatever it is. But sometimes you can shift from lower scoring buckets to higher scoring buckets.
Definitely. And so how often do you recommend somebody does this exercise? Like yearly, biannually, every month?
I would say yearly. It's it would, because you really should look at your budget probably every year because things do
Yeah.
change. And so I really like to encourage people to include this process as they look at their budget. And the other thing is it's really helpful to do that if you have a partner to
Yeah.
do this together, because it really creates so really insightful and productive conversations. Because usually you're not looking at the underlying reasons for any expenses when you sit
Right.
down with your partner. You're like, well, how are we going to spend our money this year? And this really creates a much more useful way to look at it, I think.
Yeah, and having make sure your goals and your values are still aligned, that, we're both
Mhm.
saving to do this travel or, both have the same end goal, which is helpful when you're on the same page.
Totally. And also, even if you're not on the same page exactly, I think it helps for the other person to understand why something's important to you. So
Right,
they
definitely.
might just think, well, I mean, that, you know, dog toy is such a waste of money. They're gonna destroy that. And but when they understand how, like, that might be the best part of your weekend is giving that toy to your dog, then it's a little bit easier for the other person to see the value in the dog toy.
Definitely, definitely. I would love to learn a little bit about how you work with your clients with financials and coaching. How does that process kind of work?
It can vary. I try to be really sort of customized to each client's situation. So it can range from sort of spot coaching. A couple of things that have come up for me this year are clients that were laid off. And so
Mhm.
did some spot coaching around, well, what do you want your next job to look like? So it can range from sort of short term specific issue all the way to a program for couples and partners where we go through a whole coaching program where we look back at money stories. Then we actually do this exact exercise together, create a vision going forward, and then that culminates in a financial plan. So it really
Oh,
sort of depends on where the client is and what they're looking to accomplish.
that's awesome. That's awesome. I like that hand in hand approach.
Yeah.
Well, I feel like we've covered already a ton of great information on here. Is there any other tips, tricks, pieces of advice that you want to make sure is shared with our audience today before we sign off?
That's a great question. I think the only thing that I would maybe suggest if people are going to try this with another person, a partner, a significant other, spouse, whatever, um, that communication is key. So be really honest with each other and check the judgment at the door. So you really have to go into the process open minded, willing to consider other people's perspectives or the other person's perspective, and be open to other ways of doing things, which is all really hard to do. But if you set those intentions up front before the conversation begins, I think that goes a long way.
It's a great piece of advice, just life advice in general.
Probably.
Um, yeah, I know. I love it. I love it. Well, I appreciate you coming on and providing your expertise today. It's a great way to kind of assess our values and what brings us joy at the end of the year and going into the new year as we set some goals and some financial milestones to hit. Um, if anyone is interested in having a further conversation with Abby, either for coaching or finances, her email has been going through the bottom. She's also one of our Purse Strings approved professionals, so you could check her out on our site, pursestrings.co. Yeah, and just reach out and have a conversation, see if it's a good fit for you, and get ready to align your new year with your new self.
Oh, thank you so
So,
much for having me.
of course, of course. I think we're off next week because we're hitting that holiday season. But we will see everyone hopefully soon enough. But all right. Well, thank you, Abby, again, and we'll talk to everyone soon.
Thank you. Happy holidays.
Bye. Happy holidays.